Van Hammer. Let's go to him now. We'll end the show here with Van Hammer again. Passed away on the 18th at the age of 66 years old. So let's talk a little bit about heavy metal Van Hammer, a guy who was in WCW on and off from 1991 until the year 2000. They just couldn't quit this guy. Dusty saw this guy. The story of how he started in WCW is amazing. So for people that don't know, he was a trained wrestler. He made his debut in July of 1991 in a match for the promotion North Georgia Wrestling Alliance, which had Dusty Rhodes was involved with that promotion. And he also was the booker of WCW. And he said, well, hold on a minute. Who's this guy? 6'6", 280 pounds, long blonde hair, good body. Who is this guy? There's something. We can do something with this guy. So he invites him to do a tryout match alongside Mark Marrow. So it was Mark Marrow and Van Hammer who did a tryout match. Now, again, Van Hammer had one match, one single match, and Dusty said, I like what this guy's got. Let's do a tryout match. So they do their tryout match, Mark Marrow and Van Hammer, in 1991 in WCW, and Dusty Rhodes loves them both and signs them each. And Van Hammer, by September of 1991, is already on television as Heavy Metal Van Hammer. 3-4 months into his entire wrestling career, with just a handful of matches under his belt. And I think the best way to put it is this is a man who it definitely showed that he had about 30 matches before he was on TV and had to learn on the job and never quite learned the whole way. But you said you had a hot ham.
I have a hot take.
What's your hot take on Van Hammer?
I watched a lot of Van Hammer this week.
I did too. I
watched. How do I frame this? Okay, you have to hear me out before you start laughing or you jump in.
Okay.
Because I don't think he's as bad as people think he was. I think that his biggest problem wasn't his work. I don't think his work was good, but I was shocked at how not bad it was when I went back to watch it, if that makes sense. I was expecting this horrendous worker. You think of all of the Hogan and Sid Vicious type clones that everybody was looking for in that era, right? You have this constant
Ultimate Warrior too.
Yeah, you have this constant stream of bodybuilder types who everybody was like, if we find the right guy, we've got the next Hogan, we've got the next Sid Vicious, whatever. And when you compare him to the endless string of those type of guys, I think he's better than most of them fundamentally. Like, I watch him wrestle, and his issue isn't just the basics. He throws nice punches. I mean, I know this is like the softest praise of all time. He doesn't look like super uncoordinated. He doesn't look like he's struggling to run the ropes, especially for a guy his size. But what hurt him was he had zero projectable charisma whatsoever, despite looking the way that he did. And there was just no crowd connection, and there was just no ability to have a good match. What I'm trying to say is, I think he has this reputation for being this horrible wrestler, and I don't think he's that bad. The reevaluation didn't show me that. It showed him to be maybe even an average wrestler. He just didn't have the ability to have good matches. He didn't have any charisma. He didn't have any crowd connection, and he was clearly a nothing. He was like what we call now a zilch. There's nothing there. It was very clear. It's like, all right, this guy looks great, but once the bell rings, once he's in the ring, there's just nothing there. And, you know, I watched his squash matches against good workers like George South.
I watched the same match, yeah.
I watched him, work against guys that were pushed, and it was very clear from the start, from 91, 92, when he was just getting going, that it was, even in retrospect, it's like, okay, this guy's never going to make it as a major star. He could hang around for a number of years and be a guy on the card, but he's not going to make it. And that's exactly what happened. He hung around for the entirety of the 90s as a guy on the card. The only other thing I'll say quickly, and I'll turn it over to you to get your take on that, is I think if he wrestled Cactus Jack every night for his entire career, he'd be knocking on the door at a Hall of Fame. I don't know how the fuck Cactus Jack got out of this man what he got out of him.
That says a lot about Cactus Jack.
Every single match he had with Cactus Jack was good. Some of them were bordering on great. every 4-minute TV match, the Clash of the Champions match, which is undoubtedly the best match of Van Hammer's career. The other Clash of Champions match, the first one they had, which was the short DQ, all the TV matches on like WCW, like whatever, the Saturday Night Prime, Worldwide Pro, whenever they wrestled on TV, even in tags, Cactus Jack got the best out of that guy to the point where he somehow never had bad matches with him. And this is a guy that had bad matches with everybody, with literally everyone else he ever worked with. But Cactus Jack, and let me tell you, that era of Cactus Jack, that 91, 92 Cactus Jack, that's my favorite era of Foley.
He's great. Yeah, because he could his body he could still move, and he's still got some good speed to him. And yeah, it's just he's so unpredictable at that time too. And just I watched a lot of that era of Cactus Jack recently, and that's Mick Foley's best era. I mean, I don't like what WWE did to him. I didn't like the Mankind gimmick. He obviously made the most of everything he was ever given. He was obviously a lot of fun in ECW, but he was Mick Foley by the end in ECW. He wasn't Cactus Jack anymore. Do you know what I mean by that? He was like, yeah, he was playing a meta. I'm the real human being behind the character Cactus Jack type thing.
By the end, yeah, he came in as Cactus Jack, but he didn't leave as Cactus Jack. He kind of, but in WCW, the peak of the Cactus Jack character, the peak of the Cactus Jack gimmick, where he was legitimately just this crazy guy from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you never knew what the fuck he was going to do. And he was doing things that nobody was doing, taking backdrops on concrete, the
Truth or Consequences, sure. It was not Albuquerque. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
Whatever city. I know him as Albert Albuquerque. That's for like 10 people. But anyway, that's peak Mick Foley to me. And those matches against Van Hammer are all legitimately really good. So that's what I have to say. I mean, do you disagree? Do you think he was this awful worker like everybody says?
I don't think he was good, but I don't think he was bad. The thing that I've kind of gathered from watching as much Van Hammer as I watched is, like you said, it was more about the fact that he just couldn't, he had no real charisma. They brought him in as heavy metal Van Hammer, and he carried a guitar to the ring, but he didn't know how to play guitar. You know what I mean? So it looked terrible. He would come to the ring in this flying V guitar and just spinning around his neck and just kind of like do that. He just kind of rock his head back and forth. And he didn't play, and it was obvious he didn't play. So it kind of came across like this guy was a dork.
Did we really want him playing the guitar though?
No, but I think it just made him look like a complete dork. Is that
poser,
it's just like
a gimmick?
He looked like a fucking poser. And that era of WCW, those fans, I mean, they saw through the dynamic dudes. They were like, you don't ride skateboards, you assholes. Right. Like, peak Jim Herd, like, they got to have a character, they got to be a thing or whatever. I also, and I try to do this with anybody when we do these bios, I try to listen to as many like shoot interviews about the guy as well. And he seems to be a guy that I think, unfortunately, because so much to him came so early in wrestling, that he wasn't exactly a humble guy, and definitely came into wrestling with a very oversized ego. Arn Anderson tells a story where the first day, I don't know if you heard this or not, the first day that Van Hammer comes into the building, he shakes everyone's hand and says, yeah, they're bringing me in to be your guy's Ultimate Warrior.
No, you're forgetting the key line. He said, yeah, I'm coming in here. They think I'm the Ultimate Warrior. I'm here to be the savior of this company.
Yes. And Arn Anderson is like, he said everyone's looking around for like him to be like, I'm just kidding. How are you guys doing? Welcome. Yeah, my name's Mark or whatever.
Right.
It never came.
No, he was dead serious.
And Arn Anderson's like, there was silence. And then we all looked around and we're like, God damn, he's serious. Like, what the fuck's this guy talking about? Like,
he walked into a room with Arn Anderson, Steve Austin, Steve Regal.
Yeah, like
all these
the peak 1991 WCW roster with all these great wrestlers.
And he said to them, with no irony and with no hint of joking around, I'm here to be the savior. I'm here to be the Ultimate Warrior of WCW. And he said they were waiting for him to maybe expose that he was just trying to break the ice, but he didn't. He meant it. He meant it. He was dead serious. So you're right. I think
because Dusty probably told him that when he signed him. Right. Dusty probably said, "Hey, baby, you're going to be my Ultimate Warrior, baby. You're going to save this company."
Hear Dusty saying that.
Right? He went, "Okay,
totally
cool."
Hear him saying that.
Right.
And he walks into this locker room of respected vets, and that wasn't going to get over very well. And it wasn't. And the fact that they were going to push him right out of the gate. I think the extent of his push has been a little bit overstated over time.
Yeah, he won matches, but he was winning. He was 42-1 or whatever, 42-0 or whatever. But he was just facing dudes. Like, he wasn't.
the thing is, like, I think they had every intent to push him to the moon, but it became very clear very quickly that they couldn't. So he kind of stalled out in the mid card. This idea that he was just pushed so hard so fast, I guess if you want to look at it from the standpoint that he was winning all of his matches and he was, beating some of the guys on the road and on TV, but he never got past the mid card. He never had world title matches. He never had main events, and I think that I think you make a good point because he got off on the wrong foot with everyone and didn't really know the courtesies is not the word I'm looking for. The proper way to behave in a pro wrestling locker room, how to be humble when you're the new guy. It put him behind the 8 ball, and just for the rest of his career and the rest of his life, there was just a negative connotation around him from the boys. So that's going to hurt you too when people for years have been saying, "Oh, that guy sucked and he was overpushed and all this and that." Where I think if he was a more likable guy, now he had a clique of people who liked him. Mark Marrow, Diamond Dallas Page, basically that whole crew of new guys.
Right.
That whole crew of new guys.
And those guys weren't liked either. Mark Marrow famously, was disliked because he was a Dusty guy as well. And he, came in and was given, Dusty's, I probably gassed this guy up all the time too. It's said, "Hey, baby, you're going to be my new," this sort of stuff. And then obviously Mark Marrow got a ton of shit when he went to WWF because he got a really good contract. Because he played both sides and got a good contract, and that got him a lot of heat because pro wrestling locker rooms are kind of dumb in this case. But yeah, those were the only the old guard did not like him because he didn't follow a lot of the old guard pro wrestling etiquette, and he just didn't seem to get along with a lot of the guys backstage, other than, like you said, Mark Marrow and Diamond Dallas Page and Dusty.
Came in with.
Right.
Yeah, and having an ego in a pro wrestling locker room is like the worst thing. An unearned ego. If you have an unearned ego, you're fucked. You're done. And that probably didn't help him in regards to people wanting to make him look good. You think when he gets in there with Rick Rude, after he comes into the locker room and tells Rick Rude that he's going to save the company, that Rick Rude is going to go out of his way to make the guy look good? Guys are going to sandbag you. They're going to intentionally work in a way that does not emphasize your strengths or is going to help you. They're going to want to keep you down. On top of the fact that he wasn't very good, and they probably didn't like working him to begin with, just from that standpoint, even if he was the nicest guy in the world. But if they thought he was like a nice guy that could really be a big star, and they probably would have worked harder to help get the guy over, because then everybody makes more money. But he wasn't a nice guy, and he had an unearned ego, and he couldn't work. So, he had no chance. He didn't have any chance. I just think that my impression I got rewatching his early stuff, and I didn't bother with the late stage Eric Bischoff era Nitro stuff.
Yeah, I watched a lot of that, unfortunately, and it did get a little worse in that period, I will say, because he's in WCW from 1991 until about 93, 94, 95, somewhere in that range. There's actually a hilarious story as I was reading through this, like, because of the WCW taping schedule at that time. We always talk about this. The WCW taping schedule was incredible, where I think like he was let go in July or something like that, but was still on WCW television until like December. They were taping months and months and months of shows in like one hit in Orlando. They would do a weekend in Orlando and just tape months and months of TV. So yeah, he was let go in like, I think it was, I want to say it was 94, like mid 94. It was basically on TV until, late 1994. For that, he has one tryout in WWF, by the way. Does not get hired. They don't bring him in. And then he's gone for a couple of years and then pops back up in the Flock. Now, I don't know. You probably didn't watch much of this. I think at this point you're kind of hand-waving the Monday Night Wars during the Hammer Flock era, Ravens Flock. But there's that. And then, of course, he's the last parts of his WCW career, they're just trying different things all the time. Like he's a hippie, and then he's an anti-hippie after. It's like really weird. Like they're trying everything. He's a stoner, and then he's a hippie, and then he's like he likes war, he doesn't, and then he's a misfit in action. That's a great story too. We should talk about that. There's a couple of good Van Hammer stories. We're gonna talk about the bullpen here in a second. I'm gonna actually play. Joe, you're not gonna be able to hear the clip, but the people at home can listen to the bullpen Van Hammer discussion because they have a match on Spring Break, the Spring Break Nitro in 1999. I want to say early 1999, and Hammer decides to take matters into his own hands. But I'll get to that in a sec. The great story. I don't think you were completely out of WCW about like 2000 WCW. You're not watching any of that shit, right?
I mean, no, I was watching it and laughing at it like everybody else. Yeah.
So he was a part of the Misfits in Action, which was,
Yeah.
General Hugh G. Rection.
Oh, yeah. Major guns.
Major guns with her giant tits. So then they decide that they're going to bring Hammer into the unit, and his name is going to be Private Stash. Because, marijuana. He's got a private stash of marijuana. Well, guess who says that's not going to work for me, brother? Van Hammer. He says, well, that's the lowest rank. And they're like,
for God's sake.
They're like, And he's like, why am I the lowest rank? And they're like, it's just so we could call you Private Stash, brother. It's not anything like, and he's like, no, I'm not.
Words, you big dope.
Yeah. He's like, no, I'm not going to be the lowest rank. So eventually he became Major Stash, which doesn't work. They also already had a major. They had Major Guns.
Yeah.
So there was Major Guns and then Major Stash. And it did not last very long after that. They did release him shortly thereafter. So, all right, let me play the bullpen thing. So they have a match on Spring Breakout, which is a hilarious match. If you ever want to go, I talked about it as well. On go to Flagship Patreon, the Lavella Look Back, the episode in 1999. We talk about it because it's a very, as you're watching this match without even knowing the story, if you watch the match, you're like, what the hell's going on here? These are two men that are not cooperating in a pro wrestling sense. Well, they indeed were not cooperating in a pro wrestling sense. So here is wrestler Bull Payne talking about his match with Van Hammer from March 22nd, 1999.
One of your favorite matches, I guess, in WCW is working Van Hammer.
What a piece of dog shit he is. Me and Hammer were supposed to work the first match of Monday Night Nitro. They told us there was a meeting with all the boys, and they said, everybody stay out of the pool. That's Rey Mysterio and Flair's gimmick. At the end of the show, they're going to take some bumps into the pool and do whatever. So I was happy. I didn't want to go in the pool anyways. Fuck that pool. It'll just wreck your gear anyways. We lock up. He takes me right to the fucking rail right away. And he's trying to legitimately throw me in the fucking pool. So I just jack him in the jaw. I go, what the fuck are you doing? Whack! I just punch him in the jaw. Oh, you motherfucker, you stood me. So, well, goddamn it. Stop trying to put me in the pool, So we're wrestling a bit. And he takes me out again, tries to put me in the fucking pool. Billy Silverman's yelling at him. You stupid fucker, what are you doing? He's totally ignoring us. He's trying to outmuscle me, He's a big motherfucker, The match is over, and he hits me. He does this one slam thing where he can either lay you down nice or he can just spike the fuck out of you. Well, he spikes the dog fuck out of me. He just kills me. I mean, I don't even know we're in Florida anymore. I don't know what town we're in, where we are, anything. I basically remember who I worked, but I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of telling me that he killed me. So he comes up to me after the match. Hey, pretty good match, huh? How was that finish? Kind of rough, huh? Fuck that piece of cake, man. Cream puff, easy shit.
All right, so there's Bull Payne talking about the match with Van Hammer. There's a couple parts that I love. A man after own heart. He talks about the pool and he goes, fuck that pool. I don't want to go in that pool anyway. Fuck that pool. That sounds like a Joe Lanza take. Like, fuck that pool. I don't want to be in the pool anyway. Yeah. But it's just a great, again, the guy seemed tone deaf more than anything. Just didn't know how to really, gets out there and is just like, I'm going to throw this guy in the pool. That'll be a fun gimmick. And they're like, brother, they just said don't throw anybody in the pool. Just come on, let's not throw anybody in the pool. But he just decided he wanted to throw this guy in the pool. And then the whole match is him trying to throw him in the pool, and he stiffs him at the end. And yeah, there you go. So that's that was Van Hammer. I don't have much else about his career, but I did watch a lot of it. And I agree with you. The 91 to 93 era Van Hammer is okay. Honestly, the 98, but again, here's the thing, 97, 98, you watch his matches with Chris Benoit, they're pretty good, but it's well, hold on a minute. Is it because Chris Benoit and Saturn and
he had some pretty good matches
Jack
with Benoit?
Yeah, they're not bad. They're good, but he's just Benoit's just out there. It's Benoit. He's a pretty good worker.
Okay, so what I remember about late stage WCW Van Hammer was when I thought he was horrendous during that period. I didn't go back and watch any of that because I just assumed that my memories were correct. And I really laser focused on when he started with the company, because what I really wanted to see too is even understanding why, I wanted to see in real time why the push didn't take. Is really what I was looking for. And what I saw was a guy who just wasn't connecting at all and couldn't do anything that was any good unless he was with Cactus Jack, who's an all-time great. So I'm surprised to hear that he did have some decent matches at the end. But Chris Benoit, I mean, I don't know. That doesn't... when your only good matches are with Mick Foley and Chris Benoit.
Exactly. I think I could have, in 1991, I'm pretty confident I could have a good match with Cactus Jack, and I'm pretty sure in 1998 I could have a good match with Chris Benoit. So it doesn't take much to have
could
those
Brody
guys.
Jr. have a good match with... No, don't answer that.
I'm not going to answer that. With Cactus Jack, yeah, I think so. I agree.
Let's compare Brody Jr. to Chris Benoit. In this segment, I will... No, we're definitely not doing it. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not trying to say the guy was good. Please do not put in the
Don't
papers.
put in the papers that Joe thinks Van Hammer's good.
That I think Van Hammer is good. I do not think he was a good pro wrestler. I was surprised that I didn't think he was a god-awful pro wrestler, because there are a lot of god-awful pro wrestlers of his ilk in pro wrestling during that era.
Oh, that era for sure. Yeah, I think that's a good point. If you watch a lot of those, because you're absolutely right. That was the era where it was just like, well, if Hogan and Warrior are the two biggest stars in wrestling, then we could just find a bodybuilder guy. And just, I mean, and Sting too. Sting came from the bodybuilding world or whatever. So like all the top stars in wrestling at that time, a lot of them were just, dudes that were just fucking, bodybuilders. And it was just like, oh, that's all you need to do is look good and have passable work or whatever. That was all you really need to do. But people kind of lost sight of the fact that those guys were very rare. And Warrior really, even his lack of work ultimately, put a ceiling on what he could be. I mean, Hogan was a better worker than those guys, and Sting, became a good worker and had to trim up a lot. So the idea that like, oh, you could just get a bodybuilder and make him work or whatever, but they tried it with 1,000 guys in that era, and it didn't work with any of them.
Like Sting was capable of having great matches. I mean, Sting became a good wrestler.
Yeah,
and at one time he wasn't, but you kind of saw him developing. Like, was Van Hammer appreciably worse than the Ultimate Warrior?
No, but the Warrior had charisma.
Warrior had charisma.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, just functionally as a pro wrestler, was he worse than the Ultimate Warrior? I don't know that he was.
I don't think he was as clunky. The Ultimate Warrior is like an all-time clunky worker where you watch him and you're like, the suspension of disbelief is certainly there with Ultimate Warrior, where it's like, I could tell this guy is a fake. You know what I mean? Like, I even as a kid, I could notice that this guy, like, he was just the way he moved and the way it was all just like, this guy is like a fake wrestler. He didn't look like a guy in a simulated fight like all these other guys. So no, I don't think he's any worse than Ultimate Warrior. He just had zero charisma, and the Ultimate Warrior had 100 out of 100 charisma.
Right. 100 out. Yeah, absolutely. Was Van Hammer worse than slick era carrying a trident, bloated Warlord?
Oh God, no, that guy couldn't move. No, yeah,
like Warlord was the shits, like the drizzling shits in that era, and that's the same era. And I think Van Hammer was better than him. And that's not even. And these are guys who made it and made a lot of money and were stars. Think of the dozens and dozens and maybe even hundreds of guys who came in because they were bouncers at bars and had a look and a size and they were jacked up on steroids, who various promoters thought they could turn into pro wrestlers. There were a lot of Van Hammers that were way worse than Van Hammer, is what I came away with thinking after I rewatched his 91. That's all. While acknowledging that he wasn't good. I just don't think he was... In my mind, I thought I was going to be watching one of the worst wrestlers to ever get a push on TV. And I was like, wait, that's not true. He was just a guy that wasn't good who had a great look, and all of that charisma just disappeared when he got in the ring. Because he did have a great look. An undeniably great look.
Yeah. Great body, good hair. It was all there. But
once he was in the ring, it didn't matter.
No, it all evaporated.
It all fucking disappeared. It's so funny how that works. And Meltzer told a story that I never knew. He said when Bill Watts got there, once Bill Watts found out that his shoot job was a hairdresser, it was over for him.
That's so Bill Watts, yeah. Bill Watts probably said a word that I will not repeat about that man and said, nah.
Yeah. I mean, I could just picture the moment when Bill Watts
disdain
found that out.
on Bill Watts' face as he finds out.
Someone mentions it in passing, and Bill goes, "He does what now?" And then that's it. Any idea of pushing the guy out the window?
It's so good.
Because the guy was a fucking hairdresser. But it's like they like, again, he didn't like beat top guys. The idea that he was like over pushed, I don't think that's true. Like, he never got a big push. The biggest push they gave him was in the stupid arm wrestling contest. When he beat all the guys in the arm wrestling contest.
Right, he beat Ron Simmons and Vader. Yeah, and they asked, I was listening to a Jim Ross shoot interview, and they were like, well, how did that happen? How did they? And Jim Ross is like, yeah, these wrestlers don't care about an arm wrestling competition. He's like, if it was a match, they wouldn't want to beat him, but it was an arm wrestling competition. That was like an easy win. Like, those guys are like, I'll do business in an arm wrestling contest. I don't really give a
these
fuck.
guys were probably thrilled they didn't have to get pinned by the guy. They probably saw that as like a good compromise. Yeah, all right, he could beat me in an arm wrestling contest.
Yeah, that's essentially what Ross was saying. Like, yeah, all right, look, I'm not going to put the guy over, but if he wants to beat me in a fucking arm wrestling contest, fine, whatever, I don't care. Like, not a big deal to me.
I don't even think he ever held a title. Like, they didn't. Oh man,
I'm trying to think if I don't think he did off the top of my head. Let me confirm that. But in my mind, he never did.
In the first, I don't care about the Bischoff era. I mean, like
I don't even know if he did in that era either.
I don't, not that I recall. Maybe a tag title for a week or something.
He was ranked 112 in the PWI 500 in 1993. I don't know about that. He was number 402 in the top 500 wrestlers of the PWI years in 2003. He won the Jesse Ventura Strongest Arm Wrestling Tournament. And then he was the 1991 Most Embarrassing Wrestler. People think Dave's bad. Now, we need to bring back the Most Embarrassing Wrestler Award. That'll get people upset.
In 91 and 92, he worked on the road like every night with Cactus Jack. His biggest TV feud was with Cactus Jack, that, the Clash of Champions matches and all of that. By 93, they programmed him with Vinny Vegas most of the time.
He downcycled by that point, yeah.
Here's another question. Who was the better worker in those matches, Van Hammer or Kevin Nash? Vinny Vegas era Kevin Nash.
Oh, definitely Van Hammer.
He
was horrible. Vinny Vegas was bad.
And then by 93, he was losing squashes on pay-per-views. I mean, any idea that he was still being pushed by 93 is just that's just complete nonsense.
No, he was pushed in when Dusty was there in 91.
91.
By the time Watts takes over it, like you said, for various reasons, it's over.
That was that. Yeah.
Bill Watts taking his glasses off. He does what?
He does what now?
Like, you could just see him. He's writing something down on a piece of paper, whatever. He looks up, takes those glasses off, rubs his head.
Rubbing his temples.
Says a word that I will not repeat.
He says, he's rubbing his temples.
Boy, he does what?
He's rubbing his temples. He goes, now hold on now, Dallas.
Right.
Did you say he owns the hair salon?
Now, hold on, Paige. Tell me, Paige. What did he say?
Hold on, Paige. Did you say he owns the hair salon or he works at the hair salon? Just to confirm.
Right.
Because if he owns the hair salon, Bill can deal with that.
Yeah, he's making
he's
income.
A business owner.
Passive income. That's good. That
absolutely.
Works.
No. and Dallas Page is like, no, he cuts hair, man. He cut my hair.
Right.
Bro, he cuts hair.
He does a good job.
Does a nice job. He cuts my hair. He cuts Mark's hair. He cuts everybody. Hey, he does good. He cuts his own hair. And then that's it. Yeah. Then he just, Paige, I'm going to need a minute.
Right. Scratches him off the list.
Rips up his booking sheets. Right. Rips them up. Like, that's the end of that. Oh, man.
Cowboy Bill Watts. You know what? We need more Bill Watts. Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, easy, Rich. Easy, Rich.
Hold on a minute. I've caught myself. Maybe we don't.
Pump the brakes, Rich.
Right.
Hold on. I got an old torch yearbook I can send you. Take it easy, Rich. There's an interview in that one you might want to read. Yeah.
You might want to see his thoughts about some people.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well.
God, I almost got to see how the other half lives. You almost got yourself canceled there.
No, I know.
I'm about to catch your strays.
Nah.
That would have been some revenge.
Anyway.
I think we're done here.
I think we are done here. Yeah, we've done enough on this episode. So anyway, I just love the rubbing the temple part of the Bill Watts. I
could picture it.
I can just see him taking those little glasses because he's always had those glasses, but he'll take them off and he just takes them off slowly.
Especially in that era.
Yeah. Because he was a distinguished, man in his little WCW polo shirt because he had to play by the rules or whatever.
Yeah.
And takes that off, rubs the temple, goes. I love now, Paige, does he own it or does he work?
Yeah.
Because that's a huge distinction to Bill Watts. Yeah.
For Bill Watts, that makes the all world difference.
Because if he owns the hair salon, he's like, good for him. I'm glad. Yeah, that's good business.
He's hoping against hope that he's not a hairdresser. Like he doesn't,
Because I think Bill Watts is a property owner, right? And Bill Watts is, I think, known as a property owner at that time. But
yeah, he had a lot of thoughts on business owners in that torch interview. I'm going to say.
I'm aware. I don't have to send it. I'm aware of it. Yeah, but anyway. Yeah, he had plenty of thoughts about God.
Proprietors.
Oh, Bill. Bill. Oh, wrestling.
Great wrestling mind, though. Great wrestling mind, Bill. He got a taste of his own medicine when Hank Aaron said, he said, what now?
Yeah, right. Hank Aaron took his glasses off and said, what?
Excuse me?